where they, glad I have a chair that reclines completely.
Call the meeting to order. It's November 22nd, a special meeting. Call to order, please.
Mayor Ikorst,
Here.
Vice Mayor Phillips,
Here.
Councilor Bergner.
Here.
Councilor Richards,
Here.
Councilor Gross.
Here.
Thanks.
Are you good?
We have an agenda.
Yeah, you sound like you don't feel well.
Phase 1A special referral applications, unpaid utility bills, budget workshop, final budget workshop, and city commissions and committees discussion. Anything to amend?
Motion to approve agenda?
Second.
Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Approved. First thing was phase 1A. Packet is the memorandum and so we don't need closed session for this.
No, the memo explains that it doesn't rise to the
Oh, okay.
definition for closed session, but it does include a breakdown of information and little that I could share with you, beyond the public information.
So how would you like to approach
Um,
the discussion?
Pioneer the, okay, okay, so, you all got a copy of the deferred assessment application, which allows for, those receiving the assessment to apply under various categories. Whether that's a deferral based on age or income together, age/income, a deferral based on disability/income, and a deferral based on active military service/income. So the common thread is the income piece. And we've really not, in my experience, or my understanding, the city of Orinoco has not really ever had deferrals or
I'm
deferrals.
not aware of.
So you don't have the criteria really defined for how you're going to do that. So at this point, it's kind of a broad-based kind of thing. I meant to, I can tell you that the public information that you have is in the second from the bottom paragraph. Name and address of the applicant. And all the private information stays private, but I can affirm that the party has provided that for the assessment to be considered a valid application, in my view, based on, can I tell you that? One of those three deferral categories. The HUD issues for in terms of affordable housing categories, issues what they call area median incomes based on specific housing regions. And for those that are passed down to the state housing agencies, and those in turn are passed down to the various counties and or local housing authority. The 1 member household threshold, 80% of median income for 2022 is 32,676. This individual is below that.
So that, then you said was the median?
That's 80% of the median income. And then they also provide for a 2-person family, 3-person, 4-person, 5-person, 6-person, 7 or more. But with the common thread of income being a consideration for that in 2021, the median income of the HUD site was $99,700. So affordable housing typically means that people are not gonna pay more than 30% of their income for housing,
Yeah.
total housing cost. And the area median income, or AMI, is the midpoint in the income distribution within a specific geographic area. And by definition, 50% of the households earn less than the median income and 50% earn more. And they, HUD calculates AMI annually and adjustments are made for family size.
This applicant is well below that 32,000. So that requires a motion to approve the deferral, or is it
Yes.
given? Okay.
So then does this person, has this person, remind me, the deferral? I feel like I remember Joe or somebody saying that deferrals are kind of tricky. I don't really necessarily want, I mean, it's,
It's still gonna come due at a point in time.
Right.
So when they
And-
sell the house or.
So I just-
they,
yeah, what kind of
Then it-
information is the person given about the deferral after, if accepted, or do they know for sure? They must, if they, on that, you know what I mean? What am I trying to say? On the,
do they realize that it's not giving it up, it's gonna come due at a point in time that somebody's gonna have to pay for it?
Probably does.
He does, okay.
It's just. A house, if it's when it's sold, I mean, she's an elderly lady and she's just got no income. Yeah, and she's fully aware. Cause I talked with a relative of hers and,
Okay, no, I mean, that's, I mean, it's good to make sure, cause
yeah,
some people think that, okay, it's done, and it's not,
Yeah.
it's just deferred.
Yeah, so they realize at some point it'll come due, whether
Right,
it's
it'll be
after
against
they're
ours.
gone or it's against the estate.
So in the application that Sonny sent out here last week, or whatever it was, it has these terms in it. I can just read it real briefly.
well, no, I mean, I just wanted to make sure that they're,
They're aware of
I
it.
don't know, yeah, obviously hopefully they read it and weren't just.
Well, and that's, maybe I scared them off by doing, we did have 5 people request it,
Mhm.
one of whom returned it. So the other 4, perhaps when they read that,
Okay.
changed their minds.
Right, okay,
But I know in conversations with her prior to the assessment even being the public hearing or council adopting the assessment role, her concern was that she'd be priced out of her house
Mhm.
for living arrangements. And it's, you know, housing is tough out there,
Yeah.
you know, if you're on a limited income especially, so.
And do you know, Sonny, anybody, isn't there something that says you can't, or is this what we're saying, you can't charge more? They can't be assessed more than a certain, or what is it? You can't assess them more than it will increase the value of their home or something like that?
That's true of every assessment.
Okay.
Streets, this project,
Yeah,
everything.
so let's say we assess them $9,000. If they can prove that their home value won't increase by 9,000, then we have to adjust it?
That would be up to a court
Okay,
to do that.
okay,
And that's kind of those people who maybe wanted to object and could take it to court.
right,
That's the kind of thing that they would have to
Okay.
prove.
okay. All right.
So I make a motion that we approve this applicant's deferral.
I second
If there's any more detail we need in the motion.
Again, as I mentioned, the deadline isn't really until December 1,
Okay.
but I think, you know, if I'm understanding your criteria, we could maybe do that future ones by an electronic vote or something, if you're willing to allow that. So maybe amend your motion to approve this one and any subsequent ones through the end of the month, or
Yeah.
just.
That meets
We
that meets
don't-
criteria.
We don't know what any future ones would be and what those, I guess just based on the income level, that's the major
That's the main.
threshold.
Yeah. And they have to meet one of those other criteria. You know, it's not just income only. It has to be,
Several things.
yeah, those other pieces as well. Age, disability, military service, active military service.
So what you're asking is if they meet the criteria from here out, so we don't have to have a special meeting before the due date, can
Right.
you just approve?
Right.
So we'll, amend the motion to say that we are approving not only this one, but any subsequent applications that come in that meet all the criteria for deferment. Meaning
it.
A,
I'll put
B,
you in
C.
with a second on that same one after that, so.
Seconding the amended, yes.
Yeah, cause I think that if we look at our number that we have, it's pretty low. I mean, if we've just had one out of the 5, you know, the 4 haven't done it, I think the other 4 realize too that, you know, it's just deferred, it's not forgotten about. And so I think that's what changes a lot of people's mind is that, you know, you're gonna have to pay for it sooner or later, whatever is gonna happen, so.
And I will tell you, one of the 5, we had a conversation on the phone and, he commented how helpful City Hall was. And it was like, that's what we're here for. So, you know, we talked about it and I said, you're in luck. Renee hasn't left for the post office. I'll get this application in today's mail for you. And then, he said, well, what if we prepay? And I said, you'd have to prepay in full. And, you know, I said, do you have a preference you're thinking about? And deferral or prepay? And he said, well, now we've got options. I'll have to think about it. So we put the application in the mail, but then that afternoon, they came in and repaid it. So
Nice.
it's still I find joy in getting that kind of response for city staff because,
Yeah.
and informing people, I know is what we're all trying to do, especially with this assessment piece, so.
And people always enjoy the face-to-face. I'm sure that information was in the letter
Mhm.
that you'll send out that everybody receives, probably numerous times, but they do like appreciate that face-to-face, so.
Yeah.
All right, any other comments? Seeing those, all those in favor of the motion as amended, signify by saying aye. Aye, oppose? It's approved. Unpaid utility bills, in the packet is sheet listing some names and amounts.
I'm gonna let Renee speak to this. You handled it last year, right? Yeah, so
Yes.
given that.
Okay, so the top part are ones that we know have not paid in like all year, let's say, yeah, all year. The bottom one on the bottom is only a couple months late. I think we can just send a letter reminding them that we need a payment and they'll probably get that one up.
It was text her right now.
Yeah, and maybe there's a payment in that I don't have in right at the moment, but as of the last time I looked before we did the sheet, there wasn't a payment in. The one on Center Street that I have kind of marked in the notes there. He came in the other week, talked to us. Apparently there was a little box that was checked that I didn't know about. So he was not getting notices of his water bill, so he now knows about it. So that one, I would say maybe hold off on. Plus we just talked to the landlord. So I think we can clear that one up. The one on First Street and 9th Avenue, your first and your third one listed, are ones that we do almost every year. They just never pay. And then,
But he's, wait, which one? The,
410.
Which one?
oh, First Street, okay, never mind, okay.
Yeah. so you're, if you list them, they're number 1, 2, 3,
Okay.
4 on the top. So 1 and 3 are two that we have done, I think, every year for I don't know how long.
Okay.
And are they actually on water or is this just the,
The third one is, the first one is the one that has a $75 fee or flat fee because they never hooked up to water.
Okay,
And the second one, they have sold the property.
and he is deceased.
Correct. At the time, they were doing all the paperwork for the closing. I put in there that they owed such and such an amount and this much had been assessed on their taxes, so not all of it was covered. Well, the title company put in what was assessed and they never got the money for the rest of the water bill, so that was what was left, and then fees that we have accrued since then. And I don't know what to do with that property. So that's kind of a list. Last year, what I did was I sent out a letter stating, you know, hey, you haven't paid your bill. You need it paid by this, we're gonna go ahead and assess you. So I think tonight, the main thing is just, do we have the permission to go ahead and get those letters out and start the proceeding for the public hearing on December 20th?
I think it's kind of a waste of time to send a letter to the second one. You know,
Well, his wife, I think, his ex or his widow.
she ain't gonna pay it.
Oh, okay.
We've already got.
You know, I think we'd have better like going after the Taylor Company than going after, you know, she ain't gonna pay it. Her daughter called and said she ain't paying it, you know. So I mean, we're wasting
But is
money.
it, but is it but do you have
It's the
to?
records, it's the records situation we need to.
But do you have to send a letter? Is that part of the process?
I'd
Public
say-
hearing.
Yeah, I'm just saying, is that part of the process?
I'd say once you go after the Taylor Company, cause she gave it to the Taylor Company, and Taylor Company is not supposed to transfer titles with our lien against, or a bill against it. And she gave it to the Taylor Company. The Taylor Company is the one what didn't do their job. You know, I mean, it don't matter to me, but I think we're just chasing a bad. Or is if we don't go after the title company.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know what to do with that one, so.
I mean, there's years we send letters out to everybody, but nobody comes to the public hearing and we just automatically
Assess.
put them on the tax rolls or send it off to the county and say, here,
Well,
that's our only alternative as a city is to put it on the taxes.
and I don't think we can. We're not a court, you know, we can't,
Well, we got nobody to attach, no, nothing to attach it to. I mean, he owns no property, so you're just sending it out in midair.
I believe your ordinance does allow for shut-offs. Not during the winter season,
Right.
but you do have.
No, we're talking about this one property, second
Yeah,
property.
I'm just saying,
Oh, yeah.
if you're thinking that, you know,
No,
your
no.
year-end assessing is your only option, I'm just saying, I
Well,
don't believe
theirs
that's
was,
true.
they didn't hook up.
Third,
The second one, they never hooked up.
The first and the second one still.
They never hooked up to water,
Oh,
and then they sold
okay.
their house.
To delightful people.
They are the best people,
He passed on now, and
right?
so she's in Florida and
Okay, so what's the process? You send a letter or is it what you're saying, Ryland? You just put it on their taxes and we're done?
Well, you have to do a public
Or a
hearing.
public hearing to do that?
Basically, right now, I just need to go ahead and
Property
start.
getting sold. It goes against that ID.
That's the
But the
problem
owner-
with that one.
What's that?
That's the problem with that one.
Yeah, it's,
You don't have a proper PID to attach it to, that's gonna affect the person who incurred the charges. It's gonna go against our delightful people.
Yeah, and that's not right.
they have hooked up now.
Yeah,
Oh,
they're in the
the
process.
new-
They're well,
Oh,
yes,
yeah,
it's a
they're-
long, it's a much bigger process than,
She was actually in today, but yeah, they're in the process of getting hooked up.
You know, and
That's the second
sometimes
one.
as a city, I'm just gonna tell you that, you know. Sometimes the effort. Is better served just writing off of that debt.
right?
Like for this
For
particular one,
$16.
you're not gonna,
Yeah,
So you're never gonna find, you can't assess because there's no property to assess. You're gonna assess the wrong people if you assess the
They're gonna
property.
Spend more time trying to
it's just gonna.
get
go
it
to a
paid
dark
than it
hole.
is.
So we just eat the 516.
yeah, cause he paid, cause we got all the fees from him. When he sold the house, we
Can't
got
read
everything.
this.
$5.
Oh,
What did I say?
yeah.
It's only $16.
Oh, is that what it is?
No, it's $5.16.
My eyes aren't that good.
Me too. I was like, oh, God, can we just bring my glasses.
Now we're talking money.
Yeah,
But I mean,
Yeah,
is it worth us going after it or
no,
do we
Not
just
that one.
write it off? Do we have to vote to,
We have no vehicle for getting it back, so.
yeah?
yeah,
no,
so
can't-
basically the only ones that I would, make a motion to hold a public hearing for would be number 1 and number 3.
Regarding 120 East Center Street, do you think you'll know something by our December 21st meeting? Don't know.
I believe so, cause once we, why did the landlord call? He called about something else.
And he called about something else, and then we ended up talking to him about that, and then,
can you send the notices out and then the 21st, you would decide? You'd send out a letter or something, you said?
Well, I'm just gonna say, within minutes of ending that phone call, the tenant was in here, in City Hall, talking to us about his bill, cause his landlord had called. So, and because that is a rental, I'd like to give the landlord an
It will.
opportunity to kick the butt.
yeah. And he will also be getting.
Sounds like you already did, if the tenant was in here that quick
That
afterwards.
quick. I
Yeah,
mean,
so, yeah.
so I'm confident in that one that it's gonna get, and we discovered that he was, I mean, the tenant was absolutely correct that he hadn't been getting bills because of a glitch in the one little box.
But this is an address we've had. Oh, no, this is 120. We've had another one on East Center Street where the lady lives by the alley. It's in that first block from 0 to 100 that we've had. The landlord was, evidently he's keeping his water bills up to date. Because in the previous years, there's been an address, something less than 100 East Center Street that's been gone to the tax bills.
Yeah, I just went through. Well, in the beginning of November and looked for anything that had been over 2 months.
Yeah, this person's right beside the alley that goes down to the DNR launch. And so I don't think there's anything wrong in sending it. I mean, that's our insurance. If we don't send the letter and he changes his mind for whatever reason, and we didn't send him a letter, then we didn't give him notice that it's gonna be on the hearing, so I think we should send the letter. And he can bring it in and pay at the same time and
You're talking
it's
about.
done, but if he
the
doesn't
rental guy?
pay,
Okay.
we're stuck with that.
The tenant, but, and we've got it set up now to
Should
bills.
go to both him and the landlord.
That's smart.
How many months is it?
Not well, but-
Since beginning of the year.
This beginning of the year?
Mhm.
Okay.
So what do we decide?
Now, one other thing about this 410 First Street. That's a new property owner there.
No,
That's 415.
No, 410 is the city side, 415 is across, that's the junkyard. So for the 410, it's owned by TM Motors out of someplace down here in southeast Minnesota.
Another new owner?
Mueller, yeah.
Wasn't it somebody out of the cities?
There's a sign out in front of the building. They paved the concrete in front of it.
they're fixing it up pretty nice and they're doing a lot of work inside.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Except I was
Not
gonna
sure.
talk to him, but he wasn't
I'm
there.
pretty sure it's sold.
He's gonna be like, he ain't a salvage place, he's gonna be selling used parts, but
Sold.
not assemble, it's kind of like on Google or something.
Oh, yeah, like, okay,
Online?
like auction, or like an online auction.
Yeah.
We're supplying water to a township property.
Yep.
Salvage yard?
Yeah, yeah,
No, or what?
Oh, you're right. You're right. Deb.
okay.
Why, I don't know. It's the only one that we've ever done that to.
Well, okay, so the property we're talking about is
So
the
we can't,
junkyard.
we can't.
We're
assess
selling
it.
water to a township property.
Right.
So I would send them a letter. I don't think they'll appear.
There's this town, that junkyard has always been a problem.
But we can at least get a judgment on him.
What's that?
You know, we can put a judgment on him.
It's just confusing why we even supply them with water, like you were saying, that's, how did that ever happen?
I know what you're thinking, Senator.
Sunny.
It just gets better and better. And how can the city assess?
I'll tell you why. Nobody wanted to take responsibility for that piece of property. The
Oh,
township didn't want them, we didn't want them, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, nobody wanted to deal with it. So I feel like it kind of bounced back and forth between the two.
So what are you saying, Sonny? Are you saying we can't really do this, or do we just take a shot, send them a letter and say, hey,
Well, we've done it before.
and they don't respond?
Yep, they don't respond, but then we assess and it comes through. So we get the money.
Oh.
do we get the money?
As far as I know, I sent it through. She never told me that that one didn't go through.
I say we
Was it a?
we ask for the money one more time and we
Delinquent property
turn the water
taxes
off.
on-
Oh, that's a good option too.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Why is there,
Put this on the tax rolls for this year and then
The water shut off. I
the water
mean,
probably shut off already.
yeah, but we wanna keep billing them, so we get some
We ought to
return
take them
back.
off the account or whatever we can do.
Rich can keep paying. You beat Clyde out of the place, so.
I don't know, that's a hot mess.
Well,
over
and
there. I
I
don't
think we need
understand
to
it.
somehow make it where whoever.
I don't know why
buys
you
it
couldn't
can't hook it
assess.
up.
He's at city water, why we can't assess it?
And the township.
That property.
didn't allow-
You know,
Let's turn off.
Well, let's
now.
go ahead and send them a letter. And
yeah,
I think we need to look at it beyond this meeting.
Add it to your list, Sunny.
Another research. Okay.
I sure don't see a reason, we're furnishing water. We took the water over to them.
Well, shame on us perhaps,
And they
but you
accepted
know,
it.
Why, they had a meeting and it was all approved.
That'd be annexed.
Right, I would think.
Maybe
To,
it's annexed.
you can't go around just assessing properties outside your jurisdiction.
So what's the city have to do in that situation? Would the city have to annex it or shut it off? I don't know. I'm just.
It's a different township, let township pay for it, let them get it, okay, we get the money from the township.
Well,
nobody wanted to build on.
But if the city
Okay, let's-
sells the water.
Well, we just, for tonight's agenda item, we'll send them a letter and we need to continue.
Right,
I agree.
exactly.
So who's that, is owned by
So we're
what,
sending
P
letters
P
that-
now?
Huh?
What's the name of the new
PM
one?
Motors.
1, 3, and
No, it ain't
4.
nothing to do with the salvage yard, this bill for the salvage.
Okay, so final.
1, 3, and 4. We're gonna do the letters. For a public hearing
Mhm.
on 12/20.
I think that's what it is. I get the 20th and the 21st mixed up on a whole bunch of stuff. 20th, yes,
Okay, great.
Tuesday.
At what time?
6:30.
6:30.
I put it on my calendar, I don't have it with me. This
and
was the only
then-
one that was at 6, was this one.
Yeah, I always have to check, cause I'm used to something. Huh?
What are we
And
doing?
The
Then for
21?
number 2, we're gonna write off.
Yeah.
that-
Yeah.
Write
Make a
off.
motion to write off number two.
I don't, yes, yeah, yeah.
And the one at the bottom, we're gonna send
Oh,
data.
that's-
Yeah, I'll text her right now.
Well, I think we should maybe just send a letter saying, hey, you're behind, we need. to
Yes,
go out.
obviously, but I'm gonna let her know you'll be getting a letter.
Okay, but that one is just a delinquency letter, not a
Encourage
public
auto,
hearing.
No, yeah.
Okay.
auto payment.
Yeah.
Maybe just-
I didn't even have a time now, for that public, so 6:30
And then
on
what about
public
number
hearing.
4?
Okay,
That one. we're
Number
gonna-
4, yeah, 1, 3, and 4 are getting the public hearing letter
The 20.
Okay.
for 12/20 at
6:30.
6:30.
It'll be 6:35.
Or shortly thereafter. So is that a motion then?
yes, I'll make that motion.
I think a bunch of us made a
I'll
motion
second.
throughout.
Jim's second,
Jim
Richard.
Richards,
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you.
Okay. Final budget.
Call for the vote.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Mm-mm. Wait, what?
The 25th already.
Oh, yeah, that was.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. So I have not changed the budget at all since being adopted as the preliminary budget levy. However, so that information on the big sheets is all the same. The other sheets that you have tonight are, actually update you with what the tax capacity of the city is. And so that information came directly from the county and is broken down by school district. So you can see what the different ones are. So you have your local tax capacity, your TIF net tax capacity, and combined, those make your net tax capacity. And then there's the state general gets their, cut of the pie. And then you have your residential market values and your total market values. So you can see that by and large, we really have little commercial. Commercial property. Oh, I didn't bring those. What was that? The median home price in
Oh, yeah.
Orinoco is 409. I had it laid on my thing for a long time. Was it 409,000? I want to say or something.
So. So with TIF, 2,972,313, that's an increase of $540,000. Huge. So if you take the TIF off, which is at 99,547. The local tax capacity is $2,872,766. So if we were to leave the budget, general levy at $1,075,534, we come up with a tax rate of 0.362 compared to this year of 0.321.
No, your 22 is 3.37.4. Where did I miss something?
See about. Which is awesome.
So
Good Lord, at 16%. With our tax capacity of 2.9 or 2.8, depending how you look at it.
So I see no reason to change the budget. I'm
No.
not saying, I'm just telling you.
I'd like to see when we temporarily approved back when we did it this year. You got Sunny and Renee both got big getting the paperwork, and I think they did an excellent job putting it all together. And see where, I don't like raising taxes, but let's see what we got at the end of next year. You know, and see, there are so many figures. Sonny did the best possible way she could.
Mhm.
And I think Renee and her both put in many, many hours of trying to do this. And I've even tried to get a couple things from Sonny, but she's too busy doing it. No, you do a very good job, both of you. And there's so many unknowns here. Sonny and Renee did the best they could at getting the best numbers possible. So, I mean, I feel comfortable leaving it where it was and seeing, but I mean, if we got a whole bunch left over next year, it don't mean we gotta spend it. But we might be able to do it back to taxpayers.
It's a healthy budget. I'll admit that.
It is. Yeah.
It is, but we did allow, I mean, a lot of that is for the possible increase in energy costs.
Right.
And that might,
Right, and
but
right,
what is the process for a surplus? Do we have a process for a surplus?
Well, whatever we don't budget, it goes into our our checking account. That's where our CIP's at. And
Okay,
it's a very, very healthy. You look at your, the summary in the back of your packets. think you put a summary in there where our checking account is at and everything.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
It's huge. I've never seen anything like this. Of a $500,000 increase in your taxes coming in from properties.
Well, I mean, everybody's property
We're
went up.
not using,
by-
we're only using 32% of it.
Our values,
Is in the top 30 in the state.
yeah, right, but I mean, our home values were just, but that's everywhere right now too.
It'll level out too. Until we have more growth. Because homes take about 3 years to get to their normal.
Right, Renee?
She's on year 3, so.
171.7%.
So
171.
but to Dana's point, you know, so if we have a lot left over. It's not that we have to spend it next year. We just lower. Going into the next year, correct?
Right, or you may find that, you know, those, because we still, oh, I didn't bring the CIP list either. You may find that some of the CIP items that you've passed on.
Right.
Last year or this year even, you may wanna move on those then.
Cause you're gonna be at least 95% sure how your budget is.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you did a wonderful job. I mean,
I think it will be really good to see apples to apples
Yep.
next year. That's gonna be it's gonna be a different take on it. I'm excited to see that. The one thing I would like to see us do, or just even consider. Maybe this is stupid. And you can call me on it if it is, but I just wonder, you know, Gold Rush is no longer able to fund fireworks. It's just not possible. Fireworks just are too expensive and our revenues aren't enough. So I don't know if that's something that the town would consider funding.
you can't because you can't spend taxpayers' dollars. Something like that. Unfortunately. It'd be nice if they could. The law says you can.
I'm not sure the nonprofit or bylaws and the incorporation of how it's written. I got copies. You have to take a look at that. I don't think that.
So a city can't, so how does a city hold a celebration like all the other cities that fund
Well,
fireworks?
bulletin and everything had to do Rochester's. And then, you know, I don't think, yeah. I think the city can contribute, somebody can. I don't know how it. Sunny,
I'm not sure I know how to answer that question.
What I'm wondering is if the Economic Development Council or EDA might have a mechanism for
Well, no, that's a good
doing
point
that.
because the city can fund an EDA. In fact, most people do that. They do fund EDAs. It's kind of a working capital. to Start.
something I asked Mike when you're talking to him. Yeah,
My brain's working all the time and then sometimes it just.
It's just
Or-
something
But I don't know if you have to budget for that or if that can come out of our.
Would Chris know?
Well, that's kind of what I was wondering too, or, yeah, so just something to consider, I know, we've decided. Kind of as a Gold Rush committee, we're like, well, it makes more sense to fund National Night Out where. It's more than just a 20-minute show, it's a more of a full evening, and so that's what we've chosen to do. To help fund. But I know that is something that'll, people have asked me, well, why can't the city just fund the fireworks? And I said, that's a good question. So,
Legalities.
I mean, yeah, they can because we donate cities dollars, Gold Rush donates, but unless we budgeted money for fireworks. You know, we didn't, because that's what happened last year. We don't have a fireworks budget as such, other than just the donations, I believe. And since we didn't have enough money in the donation, the city could budget for fireworks.
you better check that out. You're spending taxpayers' money to shoot fireworks, I don't know, you know,
Oh, I
Rochester don't,
don't have no problem checking it out, yeah.
cause Rochester don't, I mean. You know?
I just want an answer. I wanna know how to be able to answer that question when people ask me, cause it's been a few different people and people who've actually served in the government have asked me, and then I think, oh, I don't know. Why that has never been done.
Did they? That's on my
Because Gold Rush isn't putting the fireworks on.
Right, that's
The
what I'm
city's
saying.
putting
In the
work on.
past,
Fire department goes down there, they provide, so it is a city, in my mind, it's a city activity.
that's what's weird. Well, that's where the mushy part comes in, right, Sunny? But I just think it's something to look into.
Yeah, it's a good question. Let's think about it.
I do think there is, well, I just have one, I went through the budget and this afternoon, I just have a couple items that I think that we need clarification. One is the $46,000 for the zone, the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Yeah,
It's online,
I don't know about that.
line 168.
They're miscellaneous.
No, no, I shouldn't say no.
I need to know to my other one.
Yeah, it's miscellaneous expense.
Yeah.
Okay, because remember, I'm sorry, what line is there, please? Okay, 168.
168, yeah.
That yellow section means that entire amount, that's 48. Is meant to cover all of those things that are in the yellow column.
Oh, is that, okay, that was
So
another
planning,
question.
yeah, planning and zoning, engineering fees, reimbursable, SEH, planning and zoning, so everything that.
Oh, those were
is
just all the
basically-
Oh, okay.
fees that we had, okay.
Yeah, so trying to get, some, and again, we'll get some clarity on some of these accounting expenditures and
explains
stuff.
My
So,
concern, because in the planning and zoning meeting, when you were talking about the 48,000, the conversation was kind of leading that it was gonna put 48,000 in for paying Stantec planning services.
No, that was supposed to go out to figure out, we were gonna go out to bid on that to see
Right.
what was going on. And we were trying to do it at a monthly rate of whatever goes in, that's gonna cover that on a monthly basis.
Stantec's planning services run through the end of this year. But the council had budgeted 12,000 and that was spent like within 3-4 months. And granted, we have, multiple applications and stuff. And a clear misunderstanding between Stantec thinking that their charges were getting reimbursed through our fees, and our fees were not allowing us to do that on the fee schedule. So
Mhm.
those pieces are all coming into play.
So the alternative to that is to, if we have an application for a rezoning or a lot split or variance or anything that deems that we're gonna use planning services for or engineering services for, we have a security agreement that we have with Stantec. That we work with those owners. And they, essentially what it is, they give you a check. We work with Stantec and say, okay, how much is it gonna cost the planning and engineering to look at this? Say it's $5,000. So then the applicant, they submit a check. We do this with developers, like with the storage warehouse and any of the housing developers. We say, okay, this is what it's gonna cost for our staff to look at and respond back with either from our planning or engineering services. So anything those bills come in, the security agreement will cover that. At the end of the application, whenever it's all finalized and everything, we give them the portion back that wasn't used from the security agreement.
Theoretically,
And then that would work.
Well, that's the way it's worked when we do have a security agreement.
Well, I mean, that works with the developers, but let's take.
It works for the city too.
Yeah, but let's take, for example, that, like, we're going for the public hearing for this next week, okay, on the 8th. There's gonna take money that there is to figure out from Stantec what it is to put that garage up there. and all the other stuff associated with that. Right now, we're not getting any money back from Stantec doing the work. We're paying for it as a city. So and you can't put a security deposit down for like $5,000 for an individual person to do it. But on our fee schedule, we can say, you're gonna pay for the engineering costs that are associated with that. That way it's not coming from the city and the city paying for it, but the people that wanna get the improvements. So it's different than a developer, okay? That developer works good for putting that security deposit down. I don't think it worked for an individual. And the individuals are coming a lot, and that's what's eating up a lot of that money.
And the
So what happens if-
uniqueness of Orinoco is also contributing to.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to say, but this is how we're trying to do it, to say that the city should not be responsible for paying for people wanting to do engineering costs through Stantec. The people should pay
How
for
do you
it.
know that what they're proposing is the legal way to do it?
Well, they're gonna have to pay for that, even if it's not the legal way, the engineering cost. So if they went out to an outside engineering firm, they'd still have to pay for it, whether it's legal or not legal.
Has that been explained to the owner, to the applicant?
Well, this is what we're trying to do now, from now on, is to do that so that they understand that we're not picking it up as a city.
So would we highly encourage them to use Stantec so that we knew that it was done with in our legal parameters?
Well, then if an outside person did it, okay, which makes sense, okay, if an outside engineering company did it, they'd still have to be reviewed by Stantec, and so there'd be a cost that would be associated with that as well. So they'd have to pay for that. So if they know they're gonna pay for it twice, then it'd be better to use Stantec right off the get-go and go that way.
Stantec doesn't represent citizens for applications like that. Their agreement is with the city, not with individuals.
But we're trying to find a way to get that money back, is what we're doing, because we're paying a lot of engineering fees that there are for people wanting to do things.
That's where a security agreement will cover those costs.
Yeah, but if you go to an individual, I don't think an individual is gonna put $5,000 in for a security agreement and take money off. I
They're
don't
not
know.
paying 5,000, they're just paying for the services that you're talking about, paying for engineering or paying for planning to give the commission some direction of how to respond to a street vacation.
Okay, so I mean, you're talking as we're talking the same thing. You're just using a different fund that there is. It should be the cost that's associated with that. Whatever the cost is for somebody to come in. You know, you're calling it as a security agreement. I look at it as a larger project. That makes sense to deduct as it goes along. With an individual, just be paying for the fees that are going on with it, so.
The difference
So-
with a developer is that, and that's why we always did up in my world, developer escrows, because you could attach to the property. If they don't pay up on the escrows, you know, they spend down, but then they gotta replenish it to continually cover city fees that are incurred in engineering, planning, what inspections, whatever those things associated with that development are gonna be. But you still have some leverage with regard to the actual property itself.
Yeah, I think we're.
I know, I'm going bigger than you guys are just, but I agree with you, it's kind of like, it's kind of like, some people may, well, again, given, you know, your average home cost of $409,000, $500,000, I mean, a $5,000 security deposit, if you will, may not be a big issue, but for some people,
Yeah, it
It
may be
may-
$2,000. We've had $2,500 security agreements too, so it could be any amount. It's just that we're protecting the city from excessive costs, and also we're protecting the developer or the person that's doing the lot split. That's what happened with the boarding house. You know, we had a $12,000 bill, or was it the the Hawkins, and we had a $12,000 bill from planning services. We've had a $12,000 bill recently this summer from planning services over the years for a certain project. That the city had to accept those costs because, one, we didn't have a security agreement in place. And the city had to absorb because there's no agreement or no arrangement with the homeowner. That we had to have engineering and planning look at this. I'm pretty sure it was the Hawkins property.
But I mean, this is what we're talking about is those costs that we don't think that.
Well, and I think you're talking the same
Right,
thing.
exactly.
We're talking the
basically,
same thing.
Yeah.
We have something in place
different
now.
mechanisms. You're talking about the, what do you call it? Sorry.
Security agreement.
Okay, and you're talking about the fee schedule that's going to say, in addition to this, $250 application for a variance, you're also gonna be responsible for legal engineering planning.
Yeah.
And that additional verbiage
Mhm.
is not on your
No, it's not.
fee schedule
It's
right
not. It
now.
Never has been.
So, yeah, and it only is on in 3 areas and they're all 3 tied to big developments. And,
You know,
it's these little projects that are.
that add up to a lot, you know, so I
Well,
mean.
it added up to your 12,000 within a span of 3 or 4
Yeah.
months.
All right.
Okay.
That's one on your list?
That's what?
Is that one on your list?
Yeah.
So I guess in that same
That
realm,
was the main thing.
the budget. Our preliminary budget for building inspection. Our plan is to offset that with the new fees, correct? With the fees, aren't we changed? On. 172, I
Well,
remember,
to a large extent, those are always going to be driven by activity. So based on value, you recoup more.
okay,
We pay out more, but hopefully, but
Well,
yeah,
and this year we had the big water treatment bill that we had in
inspection
there
wise.
too, which you.
But hasn't there been an issue with inspection payments or the way we charged for inspections in the past, like we weren't charging. Everybody, or we were charging people equally instead of per project or per.
No, it's all based off how much project is. Yeah,
Never mind.
there's certain ones that are flat fees and the rest of them are all based off of how much the project costs.
and much of that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe most of those are set kind of by the code,
Hmm.
the building code, professional kind of.
Okay.
Whatever.
I don't know if with miscellaneous expense in 143. Under just the general. Is that, I know we had budgeted 250 or 250. For age friendly, is there a way we can increase that to 500 with, but still within that and be okay within that 9,000 still? One meeting we had talked about, they had asked for 250 and at one meeting we had talked about 500. And I feel like we agreed on 500, but then it ended up just sticking at 250.
I must have like done that one.
Well.
I remember they asked being 250.
Mhm.
We talked about that. So line item.
It's in here, but
But it's okay.
we had talked about 500 at one point,
Increasing, yeah.
right?
Did you talk What I'm thinking happens sometimes is you guys are so busy with all these different committees and stuff. Sometimes I worry that you're having conversations. Perhaps at the committee level,
No, this was here.
it was
Yeah,
here.
we talked
Okay,
about it here. I remember specifically talking about it here and everybody agreed.
Okay,
I could go back and look.
Okay.
Cause I wrote it down somewhere in one of these. But I mean, if we have to start with 250, it's just that, like, I think our goal is to.
What line is that?
One.
143, 141, oh, 143.
Our goal is to do a lot of, education, I think, next year of resources that we have available, and that will be distribution.
and I think that was
143.
The
the,
American Rescue Plan,
Oh,
Oh.
maybe it changed.
miscellaneous. 250
Yeah.
age friendly, and I question.
and that was the question. In kind, because you mentioned printing and stuff like that. So,
Oh, so like the 250 and then plus printing, plus,
well, I don't know. That
that's what
was-
so you're thinking that in kind, there's
Maybe a
more,
little bit more if we needed it there.
right, what does that mean? What did that mean? What's that mean to you, Sunny?
Well, we'll have you sign a security agreement.
That's cruel.
And deduct off the printing as it's done. I don't know. You know, I'm putting my mirror. But I thought that's what that was, is that the 250 ask was really because you were gonna need printing and stuff. But if
Yeah.
if you wanna look at, combining that, that's not the number that's just a calculation I made, and
Okay,
the number in there is 9,000, but I wanted you to know that it included
okay,
age-friendly stuff.
okay.
Wasn't ignoring you at all.
No, I know. So that sounds okay then, as long as we can work together with all that. Because I think really truly it's only gonna be printing and advertising and letting people know what the resources are in our community and stuff like that. That's really all.
So I went back to my sheet,
Which sheet? I have so many sheets.
line 320. I think this is something can be taken care of between two accounts, but line 320 in Parks and Rec has a recreational activities of 1,500, which was the same as this year, and we've used 1,683 for something. So at, in our Parks Committee, we talked about, having some music in the parks and concerts, like 3 or 4 concerts this summer. And most of those range from $200 to $500, maybe a little bit more depending on who we have. So between recreational and miscellaneous, I was wondering if we did either increase recreational or just have it's like 2,500 and cover whatever we did this year for 1,683, but a little bit more for music.
Or just use the two together.
What's that?
If we use the two together,
Well, that's the other thing. We could leave it where it's at and take from both or have both
I think that's a good
categories
idea.
covered, but it doesn't really give us a good track record of what we used.
what we
I
used
think
it
with-
for. Is that what you mean?
With Sunny, I think we're gonna have a real good track record this year.
But when you write but then when you write miscellaneous, when you put it in, when you take something out of miscellaneous. Then you don't know what it is, but. Or maybe you put notes in. Like if we
We're
had to,
getting better.
if you had to pay for part of the concerts out of that 3,000. Maybe a note.
And it's just a trial this year. It's not a big expense. We're just gonna try and see if it's well accepted in 2024. We may do something.
I think it'll
It's a
be
really good
really,
deal and we can do more or something, but we can. I think 1,500 is okay for what we're talking about, but just in case we,
I think we'll cover it, and if not,
Let's leave it.
squeeze a little bit out of that 3,000. And make a note. For next year.
let's just. When our tax rate goes from 0.32 to 0.3.
Yeah, when I went through this again today, I
321 to
was really
362.
comfortable with it.
Well, and I came armed in the event that you were thinking of doing any cutting.
But Sunny, what did you tell me today about the insurance?
Insurance, the league insurance, just got this. Property rates or liability rates, auto physical damage rates, auto liability rates are all going up 5%. Excess liability, which is optional, is gonna increase 15%. And no fault sewer backup, which is also optional coverage, those rates are increasing 20%. But in addition to that, we're seeing increases in, health insurance coverage, dental, vision is new this year for 2023. Maybe short-term disability. So all those kind of costs are as well, and then also workers' comp. Is increasing at an average of 3% for renewals in next year.
Could you send them a letter back and say we already set our budget, we can't increase?
You know, unfortunately, my luck with insurance companies, you know, I just. Part of it is I don't like stress, and so I kind of choose my battles.
Yeah, it's a tough battle with an insurance company.
So, yeah, so those, I'm not even sure that, you know. I don't know what our utilities are going to be. You know, percentages are one thing to come from a. Insurance company telling you what their increases are gonna be, but. We'll have to see. How we do, and I'm looking forward to next year's conversation on budgeting too, because. We will, I expect, have some solid numbers having moved by journal entry, moving some
Consolidated,
things
yeah.
out. Consolidated and cleaned up the chart of accounts. And being able to really. Show some apples to apples, like you mentioned.
So I don't mean to be going back to the point about the increase in tax capacity, but if you look at the sheet that she has in the packet here, that's an example of what an individual on a $290,000 home, which is typical. So coming into this meeting, there was a $208 increase per year. And with this increase in tax capacity coming from the county, it's $34 a year. Or $3 a month. So that's awesome.
Mhm. Yeah. It's unheard of in a project like this.
So it really looks, it's gonna make for a great audit report and 2024, but anyway, I'm just very pleased to see that.
Yeah, what were we
So-
looking at before this? We were looking at.
Yeah, and kind of,
So what did you propose 5 or 7% in the budget for what you
Okay.
just read us off? Compensation and benefits and. Does the budget cover what you've just learned today?
that's what I'm saying, I don't know.
Oh,
what that
okay,
does.
yeah.
Um,
We wanna set arbitrary amount? Is that what you're asking? Cause it's gonna go up? But you don't know how much?
Well, I'm just saying that at the same time you're having this conversation about expecting a surplus, you may not have the surplus that you're thinking about
Right.
because of these additional funds.
Right.
But at least we're on the plus side to have it
Yeah.
instead of taking a big hit afterwards and being on the negative side.
Do you think, are you comfortable with are you comfortable with us being able to cover these costs with our current budget? The increase in cost?
I believe so, and the changes that we made in terms of workers' comp, having the guys actually
Yes.
break down
Yes.
where they're spending their time. Not that they're happy doing it, but, and Renee and I are doing, you know, I mean, but it's necessary evil to kind of just, and I don't think it's an evil, I think it's good business. So that's kind of my perspective on it.
Gives you a better story.
So those kind of, you know, implementational changes that we're making and the chart of accounts, you know, those kind of things that we're talking about.
So we're leaving it as is?
I don't think it's gonna be a. No,
That's council.
what's that?
That's a council decision. You can bring it down, but you can't go up.
I make a motion, leave the budget as approved.
Well, and
Or in-
I would suggest that you be prepared to do this, not necessarily tonight, but at the December meeting.
At the December meeting, yeah.
Oh,
But just.
Okay, I thought, yeah.
so we don't
But
have to
this-
approve it tonight.
This
This
was
is a
kind of
workshop.
Oh, okay.
a final workshop, so that if you had questions or wanted to,
Well, if we can see what all these changes are gonna affect prior to the meeting and kind of in advance, so we can,
I don't think we should cut.
that'd be great.
smack it. Do my best.
Well, we really
All right.
can't go up any,
Well, and part of it is,
and we sure don't wanna go down.
well, yeah, and part of it is that, you know, like all your insurance coverage is subject to an audit, right?
Mhm.
So our audit will tell this next year how well we've done in terms of categorizing and bringing our rates down.
Mhm.
So that's the big takeaway I'm looking for there, but yes, I can certainly look to see, and I can tell you that I'm big on budgets, I'm big on them making sense. I'm big on having logic, rule, and how you're developing them. But develop budgets are merely a plan. The real key is in monitoring it and
Mhm.
managing it and enforcing it. And that's kind of where I see my role is too. And then keeping you constantly informed on a monthly basis at
Yeah.
council meetings where we're at.
The
And
packets are very informative, I appreciate
That's
that.
so helpful.
Mm.
It's such an improvement. Thank
And the
you.
process will start in June or July, not September 15th.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we had our first one, I looked at it, was August 30th, we had our first workshop.
Yeah.
And then we didn't do anything.
there's a
well,
lot,
we wanted to give you a break.
but honestly, I have to say, I'm very impressed with that. Really, you think about a water and sewer project.
Well, and I know,
That's separate
you know, the
too.
second sheet kind of tells you the same thing, but I thought this was powerful to see what we were talking about before.
Yeah.
And it's the
Mhm.
change
You can
in
explain it.
tax capacity that's going to make that difference.
Okay, last item on our agenda. Committee. What are we talking about here? Commissions and committees.
Let's talk about it. Okay, yeah, do you want to bring up would you mind using your computer to bring up the, all the committees that you have
Oh.
on the website.
Take a second to find that.
Yeah, let me go grab one. Page. I do.
You gotta turn the heater up.
No, again. Well, we're almost done.
Yeah, we're,
See, I'm feeling good.
we're just about done.
It's. Staying awake.
That's true. Does keep you awake. When your toes and your fingers are cold.
Let's see if I can. Go ahead and plug this in.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe grab Sunny one.
That's gonna be hard for issues.
That's not.
I need to start wearing my glasses all the time when I'm reading. Do you
Just
have
gonna
the,
get used
do
to
you
it.
have the transit, like the?
So these are not, I do have bifocals.
But how can you look around you when you can't see out of one?
Get used to it.
So mine are, I'm almost to see it when I read. You isn't constantly reading it constantly. So in my bifocals, the top part is what this is. Cause when I'm driving at night, I can't do bifocals because it is mine.
Yeah,
And I just couldn't tell where things were. So this pair I had them do just as
The
the upper
transition.
part.
yeah,
Do progressives on Norm.
yeah, that's what I meant.
I'm
progressives.
running on progressives.
Yeah,
Okay, and then you get used to it when you first have them.
yeah,
It's a matter of walking up and down steps that are a little bit crazy, but you get
So
used
mine,
to
I
just
couldn't-
knowing where you're gonna look.
Yeah.
And it works pretty good.
I couldn't do the progressive, so mine are, it was a stark line.
why?
Depends
My
upon,
insurance.
Oh,
Like I get $3 for progressives. So I still have those. I'm reading with. People down, but if I'm farther away, then.
yeah. It's just getting worse and worse and worse.
that's called maturity.
That's a good word.
We're talking about glasses when you're.
I used to have terrible vision. I had LASIK vision.
So,
Eliminating personnel, is that right?
What's that?
We're eliminating personnel on January.
eliminating personnel.
Yeah.
All of us.
And so mine.
Get a budget out on
It's
this
a
one.
tough message, but you got it.
Up and down their path, and so it's a little bit weird, so.
Nothing like easing into that conversation.
You're both sick with it, like my son can't even.
We were talking about it. What is your thought?
On the personnel.
Yeah.
Invest.
Does there need to be another avenue?
So.
Well,
I don't know how other cities run their things.
Okay, so I,
Guys,
Safety dress is very.
sorry. So I had a conversation with, Mike about the personnel committee. Because there was some concern, he had concerns about how it was, because like any of these other committees, they have to be open to the public, which is not what the intent was on either the part of the city or certainly staff. And with this new structure as city administrator, we've moved to the staff meeting model. We were gonna have one tomorrow, but many of us are getting over being sick, heading into being sick, thinking about it. But I do think that there needs to be an opportunity for, as chain of command, that for instance, Kane's people, he's their supervisor. They need to work with him with issues. If to their satisfaction, that's not answered, if it's a human resource issue. And as city administrator, I encourage them to come to me. If it's something that they don't like Dean's answer, they don't like my answer. There perhaps should be an opportunity for them to move beyond that. To a personnel committee of 2, or you don't want 3 because you don't want, unless council as a whole wishes to, as city administrator, I can bring things to council because the personnel, that's one of the 7 exemptions for having a closed session.
If I'm gonna be honest, I would prefer that, just because over the years that I've been here, I have felt completely in the dark. And it has caused a lot of issues.
Who needs and needs and who's it?
Not knowing anything, Carl,
Yeah,
like
right.
not knowing anything, coming into a meeting and not having been told anything about what's going on. And then being asked to make a decision about something, especially in the reviews, in the review process. Being asked to review people and not knowing. It's been really awkward, and so I would prefer you presenting it to all of us, so that we're all in the know.
And I guess the way I would see it is all the reviews. Stop right there, right?
Well, right, maybe that's true too, like we
That's-
won't even.
Yeah, cause she's the city administrator.
But you have
she's
to
the-
do, you have to do salaries and increases, right? As far as, that comes to us.
Yeah, but that would come through Sunny, I would think. That's my feeling.
Part of the budget preparation.
Yeah, and I mean, I could see it both ways. I mean. I was asking you just before the meeting.
Yeah.
Is. To your point, so let's say it was Kane. So Kane goes to Sunny, Kane has an issue, he doesn't like what he's hearing. Do we give them an avenue? But I like the process of, okay, if he's not happy with it, then Sunny brings it to council. And we eliminate a committee, we eliminate what Mike is talking about. Having to open it. You know, because if we have a personnel committee with a council member. Do we would that be open or, well, no, it would have to be right? I don't know.
And in such a small community with a lot of people knowing one another, that person that is that could be somebody that your staff either has an issue with or is really good friends with, and it might be skewed, you know what I mean? Where if it's all of us hearing the issue together,
Yeah,
we have a better chance of,
I personally think, you know, if the buck stops with Sunny and then Sunny brings it back here, if there's something that needs to be mediated or something, I don't. That's why we hired a city administrator.
it's true, that's totally
Well,
right.
The question I have is, you know, there's, sorry, I don't know the big definition, but there's Plan A and Plan B cities. And I believe we're Plan A.
Statutory.
Yeah, okay, so that's not changing. You're not really a city manager.
No.
That does the hiring and the firing. It's still the council's responsibility to do that. So we're not changing our structure of the city. It's just that we're reconfiguring it, if you will. So it still comes to council for approval. And that hasn't changed. So I think that's, to me, that's the most important thing that we're doing, we're not changing. So,
I think it makes.
so in the case of an employee coming to you and that employee doesn't, how do we rectify? So does that employee bring his complaint to the council then as well, in addition to your input, or how do we rectify the situation other than what you would propose?
As you know, we are working to revise the personnel policies, and one of those things is defining how that's going to happen.
Okay, all right.
I have no issue, I don't want to get into a he said, she said, or she said, she said, or any of that kind
No
of thing.
names, just in general.
Right. And as you know, I'm fond of memos and resolutions, and so actually factually spelling out what the options are, what my recommendation is gonna be, you know, that kind of thing, just so giving you, and I'm going to say, just from a good business practices, legal standpoint, personnel matters standpoint, documentation is gonna be key. Because if those, you know, let's say this. Once an employee becomes disgruntled and it's allowed to continue, you're not doing any of the team any favors by not stopping that.
Right.
Because you're setting the tone for a tolerance level for everybody else.
One
In my
bad
view.
apple makes the whole basket of bad apples.
Yeah, so I'm hopeful that I don't know of any issues, we're just talking in generalities here. But, you know, it is one of those things that we're talking about personnel issues and how we want to deal with that, but I think it makes sense to have, you know, if a person wants to come before council, I'm not opposed to that happening, and giving them that opportunity. So.
But that's what updating the personnel policy will outline that process. So-
Yes.
Okay, that's good. So circle back around to what Mike said, then
Mhm.
we talked a little bit different. So what is he a proponent of a personnel system or committee or not?
Not the way you've been doing them, no.
Okay.
I think he would support them if. And I'm not even that big of a fan of them, because I think it muddies the water when you have an administrator. I think what I'm proposing, that it comes to the entire council, and likely behind closed doors as a closed session. That's the better way to handle it.
Mhm. Okay, no, it's,
Because then you're not mandating that it be open. The meeting will be called, the session will be closed.
Yeah.
You open, close, come out with a brief summary.
and just like we do reviews in the past, people can come in. We can ask them, they can ask us. They can be part of that discussion, maybe not the final decision, but they can have their input. That's what, we've never really had that before, up until a year ago.
And that's
As far
what
as
makes you
personnel reviews coming
uncomfortable?
in,
It made me uncomfortable, well, what really made me uncomfortable is approving an increase in salary or a stay at salary or any of that without knowing there are issues, but not knowing the full story. And the full, not, and that was, I just felt so out of the loop, and it just felt very awkward. So I really agree, and I do agree with you with, I think reviews should be done by the administrator as well. However you see fit, and then those reviews brought to us as information,
Mhm.
and then that's.
Or recommendation
Yeah.
too, along with that, of what
Right,
you would recommend,
yes.
Yeah.
you know, on that increase, you know, and
Yes.
why, so.
And I would see Sunny's review coming to the council, right?
Yep.
Isn't that? normally-
Yes, right.
So, cause Sunny reports to the council. So all other reviews come up to Sunny
Mhm.
as the administrator. Then Sunny's comes to us. And I'm wondering too, what we were just talking about in terms of bringing something to the council. Maybe it's a form that they fill out, like an issue form or something, that the council's aware of it
Mhm.
before it comes, so the council knows what's happening, and then they come to the council. I know there's a timeliness issue though, because it's a monthly thing, right? And we don't necessarily have to call a special meeting for it, but just something to think about, but
so.
I would assume most things you could handle. Most things you could deal with. I would assume. But obviously, when anything gets trickier, then it's,
yeah.
Well, it all works until it doesn't, right?
right.
Well, and the other thing too that we have to consider, but I say. My feeling is run with it now, but I know we're gonna be bringing on more staff as that plant opens up. I mean, there's definitely gonna be more staff. We wouldn't wanna overburden you as well. But we cross that bridge when we come to it, I think.
Yeah, let's see where we get this one, when she gets the book all redone.
Mhm.
Well, and then human
Yeah,
resources
some
might be
time.
a need in the future, so we
Mhm.
just have, yeah.
Yeah, and there might be more managers, who knows?
So in your personnel policy, you outline the review process and also identify inputs into employees or supervisors. Who can provide input? The chain of command from a entry-level public works person all the way up through the director to you, so there'll be input following input upwards to the next person, ultimately gets to you as far as inputs go. So the input you're getting is from everybody down the chain, not just your input. Is that correct?
Well, ideally, the ideal number they say to have reporting to you is 4 to 5 people. And then underneath that
Mhm.
one is another 4 to 5 people. Well, it'll be a while before we reach that, but yes, the policy will lay out grievance procedure, the organizational chart, which I'm working on, that's going to be today, tomorrow, so it's got that. We talked about, because you're saying HR is another down the road. I certainly see Park and Rec having its own kind of leadership position there. You get a lot of parks, you get a lot of land that needs grooming and natural resources that need caring for, and so all those kind of things. So remember that big plan that you
Yeah.
that you first brought me in for, is to do the assessment and then do that. So that has not been lost, still on the list. And becoming clearer actually as time goes by. But it will spell out those things.
And go ahead, Rylan. I got something to add when you're done.
I just, you mentioned something is over on my list here. You talked about, I see you had deputy clerk, administrative assistant, but I didn't see your project specialist on there.
Oh, that's on there under contracted.
Oh, contract, okay, that's what it's in. Thank you.
Yes.
So one thing I would mention, you know, to Ryland's point earlier about, you know, all the feedback coming with it is, and I don't know, Renee, if you guys have done this in the past, like having a 360 review where each person will pick, you know, 2 or 3 people to give input on their review. And then that comes with it. So it's, you know, you're getting some.
Peer review.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, and maybe they can pick another person, but it's got, you know, it should be a person that they work with their.
And it made, my experience is that makes more sense when you have a larger organization.
Yeah.
It's hard to
It's
pick.
pretty
Who's
cool,
thinking that?
Yeah, really. It's hard to pick something
Yeah, just
that's
turn on.
smaller,
Yeah.
but I, you know, as we get bigger,
Yeah,
I would definitely
Yeah.
consider that.
they're valuable when you have that, when you have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but right now, I know Ryland just asked that question, you know, so who will have the input? Are you still gonna get input from their cohorts?
I think you almost know now, because it's such a small organization that you'll feel that.
And my preference is to keep it as anonymous as you can.
Right.
As you can, give the people, so that. Because you don't want, I mean, for like Kane's staff to be giving him feedback on him, and then if it's identifiable, having it go back. I mean, that.
Yeah, that could be a little bit
Yeah.
hard, because if they're,
That's risk management issue.
yeah,
for-
if your staff are a little bit disgruntled about, you know, a new policy or something that you had to enforce, then they could sabotage you, so, yeah. But I'm just saying later down the road, I would think of that, but, you know, I would look to you to how you would like to handle it now. There needs to be input, but also my preference would be if we do as a council member have input, say that, you know, Ryland, you have experience with Kane on things, and Corey and others in the office. If you want to give input, or if any of us want to give input, we give it to Sunny.
And that's what we did in the past. We kind of just did it on the spot in the, you know, before the
During
employee,
discussion.
during discussion before we came into the room. So do you mean before that?
Yeah, I'm wondering, do
Or do
you want us to do it in document, you know, document
wait.
it, let you know, or do we still continue to do as we did before?
I'm revamping the evaluation form.
Okay,
And so I'll have you all fill one out. And again, it's intended to be non-identifying. Which is kind of why I remember the workshop we had, and I went around and got just a feel for some feedback. So I have those comments too, and then additional comments. The more comprehensive and helpful we can make these be, in terms of evaluating past performance a little bit, But, in my experience, the more, engaged employees are, the more productive they are. And the more that they know they have growth available to them, should they choose to want to go there. I'm not interested in forcing someone to go into an area that's not of their interest, because I think then you're starting to skew that motivation factor too. But also making sure that we have options,
Right.
available to those who want to exercise them. Because their goals and aspirations should be an area, an avenue that we can help them achieve if we're able to do that. And so creating those opportunities, I think is gonna be best for all involved. Including whether that's a line worker, whether that's management, or whether that's, council, or, a resident, because if we can keep everybody.
So will this just be an annual thing that you bring to us? Okay,
Probably unless it's an
Yeah,
issue.
always done it in
Unless-
July.
unless there's an issue, yeah, okay,
If there's an issue.
okay. I like this plan a
In the
lot.
past, we did them in the July because they would affect the budget when we started to put the budget together in August.
Mhm.
That was a timeline versus at the beginning of the year or end of the year, but it's more of a budget process. I think that's what it spells out in the personnel policy right now is July reviews.
Well, we're behind. So.
Add it to our list.
Yeah, it's not like we've been doing nothing, but, part of me, then that makes it so predictable, right? You did this performance review on me, and I know that's the basis for my budget number.
What goes into that budget
It
number,
goes
effective
into that
1 January,
Yeah. But I like to keep things separate in terms of, to the extent we can, because right now you're not doing a performance factor, a COLA factor, inflation. I mean, if you were doing all those things, I could, see those kind of things. But my understanding and how we've done the budgeting is, it's just one.
The step system almost, it's not performance based, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it has been in the past, for the most part, but it's been pretty much universal. The 3.5%, 3%, or we've done some pay adjustments, if you will, mid-year.
I think that this year.
And I think that really boils down to the importance of, and we've talked about this too, just having a pay plan structure.
Yes,
Scale,
Structure.
yes.
Going up to the ranking and
In general.
here it is, year 3, year 6, year 10. This is what you're going to get. Everybody does. I mean, that's to me, that's a responsible city budget. Yes, it may not be performance,
Well,
but.
I think there's room for performance in
Yeah.
that. I think it
could
can be
yeah,
and both.
But you can't get out of sync because you had to report to the state your pay equity based on your
Right.
ranking. So that's where you gotta kind of watch. We can't have somebody leaping over somebody else, because
Yeah.
that'll get you in trouble. And I-9 was
That
an
can be
example of
serious.
that. They had
Right.
$100 a day fines because they were way out of whack.
Right.
We came real close. We were threatened to do that a couple years ago when we had to make changes.
Right. And yeah, I totally see what you're saying, but I still think that there's room for performance, because I think what you're saying is if you tell somebody this is gonna be your salary for the next year, this is your rate, then
Yeah.
what if performance starts to really take a nosedive?
There's a lot of cities that do that.
I know it.
Rochester does it all the time. I mean, that's a big city, okay, but there's other cities. Got pay scales from other cities too over the years, and it stays. They get updated, everybody goes all together, but there's just all
But
being
if you.
part of the
if
city
you keep a
employee.
record,
according to the taxpayers.
If you can justify not giving that employee a raise, they. I mean, if you're just a terrible employee, if you don't think it's worth a raise, I mean, you fire them? No, you don't give them the raise or
Well-
something, you know?
And the other thing you can do, I mean, that's what we do, so everyone moves up as Ryland is talking. You move up those steps, but if there is a documented performance issue, you don't go up. You're staying there for a while.
Almost
Until
like
that
a probation,
performance,
almost like
yeah.
a probationary
goes up.
period or something.
Motion
Yeah.
gets you to those other ranks too. You know,
We don't have
Should
to
also have
solve
a
this
cost of
tonight,
living.
but
No, you go back to budget.
Yeah.
Our
I mean, you go
committees,
from a motion level, from a level 8 to level 9 or something like that versus saying a level 8, year 2 through 5. You go from a level 8 to a level 9 first year. I mean, there's promotions in that ranking
yeah, there's like
to
a
allow for this performance if performance is.
something you can handle it. I know you
quartile,
can.
it's what quartile or where you fall in that range too. I mean, we play with that.
Let's get back on.
Yeah.
committees.
It's getting late.
Yeah.
Well, that's one committee out of the,
So,
but the bigger issue, and I was at the Gold Rush Committee. Meeting, which is they're a totally separate entity. And I think it's best for the city and for them to make sure that we're maintaining separation. Not just for Gold Rush and the city, but in terms of other nonprofits that may want to, be represented. And again, I'm not at all immune to the fact that a lot of these committees will need assistance from the city and support from the city. And all of these committees, as you know, my intent is to have a staff member at each of them so that we, as staff, stay connected and informed so that we can best serve not only your committees, but also the residents. We all work for them anyway. And what are the other? I have here? Okay, so, and historically, I don't want to belabor this a whole lot, but other than the planning and zoning, which your ordinance right now, and that could be changed, but your ordinance right now reads that 2 council members make up part of that 7-member body. But the rest of them, I don't see that you need to be sending 2 to everyone. My recommendation going forward, as we think about appointments for next year, is that you name a primary, and if you want, an alternate. And between the 2 of you, or you could tag team it or something.
I agree.
So, I mean, that's just my thought on.
And I also think it would be worth maybe doing that for P and Z as well. Change it, which one I know would require changing the,
Ordinance.
but I don't know why, I feel like that one. And then I have a question is specifically for water and sewer and planning and zoning, I either attend them on Zoom or in person, or I watch them later just because they're usually pretty informative and I want to know. Is it still, I was always under the impression that I can go as a council member, as I can still go to any meeting, sit in the audience and not be counted as. Because I'm not there to talk and I'm not there to take part, but I can just listen and, right, and so if anybody, and that's,
And I've been doing the same thing like you have been, especially in the water and sewer, to say that
yeah,
we know what's going on for the city.
So that's, I guess, that being said, like anybody that was current, on one of these committees. You can still go to the meetings, you just don't have a
What about
vote.
quorum? Will it?
Well,
so
you're
it-
going as a resident,
We'd be
and
going,
so you make sure that you do not
do
participate.
not,
And that's the way we've done it in the water and sewer. None of us have participated
yes.
in the audience. We've both been there, but we just don't participate.
But even in that case, water and sewer has only you. Is that because Lori?
Lori
on
was,
there?
right.
Roy was there.
So we never named a substitute to
Mhm.
fill in for her,
So
so.
Dan, would you wanna do the parks
Sure.
as the main one and?
Well, we'll do this next year. Right?
Well, I want to, I won't.
Or do you wanna
this-
start
I
now?
just want- I'll send you some information,
Okay.
but I want you to be thinking about,
Okay. I thought-
here's the thing is I want you to, pick an area that's of interest to you, that you're gonna speak to, in terms of being the liaison back to council. And bring that information back and represent them well. And hopefully, it's my hope that in perhaps freeing up some of your time, you can do some of the volunteer stuff that you want to have and still be an active and engaged council member that's interested in really moving the city forward in terms of not only the committee that you serve on, but collectively as council as a whole. Because now we know the election's over and we know who's set for, you're the players for the next
So the
2
one,
years.
no, the challenge, it's not really a challenge, but it could be, is that both parks and water and sewer would have to come up with one more public resident to make up an odd number.
Is that a bad thing if we're trying to engage?
No, it's not, I'm just saying,
Well,
sometimes it's hard to find volunteers.
But,
That's all I'm saying.
but as far as, I mean, since I've been on parks, I don't know if we've actively looked for another person. Actually, I think we're already down one person, aren't we? But,
Who's your student person that's?
he's done now because he's in
Oh.
college.
The other one, though. We'll need to add here too is CETA, right?
Well,
The EDA, when we,
Oh,
Or
the,
CDA.
well, and I just want to mention, I know they're on two separate nights. Two separate Mondays, but I wonder if first responders and fire shouldn't be the same or even you
There's
guys,
so many of them
well, first responders,
on both. The fire department and first responder, so it'll be tough.
Mhm.
well,
They're
But-
different nights.
they're different nights, but first responders is so, there's rarely anything that I need. I mean, I don't know how you feel about fire, but it's such a short meeting and then they go into training. You know what I mean?
Seeing fire's more. We're trying out.
Yeah.
two meetings.
There's quite a bit.
Players sit around a table and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
They
a
go-
big table.
Fire goes through a lot.
Yeah.
Well, first responders sits around a big table too, but they get their meeting done fairly quick and then they go into training.
Yeah, first, fire doesn't, well, they have.
A training night.
What's that?
They do a training night.
Well, they have, yeah, they do that, but I mean, they have the gambling and the fire department meeting. on the
Relief
same-
too, yeah, the whole relief.
The
Well-
relief, there you go.
I just don't know.
It's gonna replace Pat.
Who's replacing Pat?
Hmm?
Who's the new gambling manager?
With Pat.
Pat retiring.
You know,
That's the gambling manager?
it
Yeah,
was, and.
did a good
Who
job.
did they say?
EOC,
Well, that part I knew,
yeah, he was gambling too.
but I
Where they got Poltam?
heard the name.
Hmm?
Where they got Poltam?
That's fine.
Yeah,
Oh,
they
you
do.
heard
That's fine.
What's his name? I think-
Because you gotta get all those licensing done.
I think right, I thought it was Johan.
What's that?
I.
Is it Johan?
Johan, I could be wrong. I mean, I came
He's a
in late,
training guy,
I
but
came late in the game. For
I
the
think
last one,
me
so
to
they
ask
had a
them
lot of
about
that covered already.
Yeah. So,
I would feel bad taking that as a committee and that being the only thing I did, because it isn't any, do you know what I'm saying? It's not first responders.
No.
I would feel like that isn't necessarily. It's worthy, obviously, but it almost maybe should be a conversation with. It could be almost a conversation, an email between the two. Between somebody instead of actually having to attend the meeting. Do you know what I'm saying? It could be an email with the first responders group. Is there anything you need me to bring to council? And I almost wonder if it isn't something that you. As the administrator.
you think I need a training? You think I need training?
No, I'm just saying, would it be more useful?
You're the fitness
So
person.
often they're just telling me, oh, I'm gonna contact Sunny about this. I'm like, so they already are doing.
Oh,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
It's not like there's anything. That I ever do for them. That's what I'm saying. You know, you're not a voting member. It's not some, you're just there to observe.
Liaison.
Yeah,
So maybe
Supportive,
Carl would be
though.
interested in the first responders.
I'm interested in the fire department and I do with first responders.
That way
Kim,
Dan.
we're just talking about it.
Dan
But I'd like to
Mark.
talk to Dan and the first responders, see if they feel comfortable with this.
well, it just makes me wonder if one person
Yeah.
can do both. Well, I don't know. I don't wanna say that either. The reason I'm only stay for part of it is because I go to Gold Rock, or I go to Parks after that.
Parts at 7.
So I do both meetings in one night. But usually when I break, they're almost done with their talking part and then they're doing some sort of training.
That would make Jim. The second Monday, the first Monday,
I know,
and P and Z, so it's kind of loading up on Jim too.
so I can continue to do both for now. I'll just do that. It's easy. And it's and once in a while, you know what, I actually, age friendly, I actually bring more to them for age friendly than anything else, you know what I mean? And they work together with food shelf and stuff, so it's almost like my volunteer stuff lines up with them really well, so I'll just keep going to that.
So Sonny, are you wanting us to assign tonight? Or
No, it's just to think about it.
Yeah.
He said we'll bring it up. Cause I mean, I like the water and sewer thing, too. I really enjoy. With that, another person that there is to that.
An
What about
alternate.
P and
I'd like to
Z?
stay on water and sewer, just
I think it's
No,
important.
no,
to-
I just, but if you needed to have instead
for the
of,
alternative.
to do that, or if we need to have an odd even. That other person that there is to make it even, so.
P and Z, we have requirements, or we have number of years. Is it 2 years
3 years.
3-year
3 years.
terms
terms?
that we stagger, yeah. The one thing, I lost it. I was gonna ask. So who is on the water and sewer committee as in terms of committee members?
Myself,
It was Lori.
was Lori. Myself, and then we have, Paul Janetto, Larry Stowe, Ross Parker, Dylan Christopherson, and, Joe Kimmis. We have 5 residents. And then Lori and I make up the council of 7, or the committee of 7.
Okay. And are most of the committees made up of 7 people? Or is
I think they're
that?
supposed to be.
So-
Two council members and and 5.
Yeah.
I think that's always
That's always been the intent. I think our personnel policies. Maybe
Or
it's,
the
maybe
ordinance?
it's an
or
ordinance. I don't know.
city board?
Is that a lot? Do you feel like that's a lot? I mean, I'm wondering
Most-
if we did 1 council member and 4 city members, then you'd have 5 and then we wouldn't have to, then there wouldn't be a ton of people. Cause then you'd still want that odd number, right?
I would say 1 council person at each.
In my
We
experience.
just
it's been
assume it's an odd
consistent.
number, so we don't have a tie.
Yes.
votes,
Right,
you know.
right.
I think that, I mean, is it usually 5?
Yeah, well, it's 5 if your city council is 5. And
Ah.
often if you have, you know, a larger 7-person council, you may have
Yeah, just like-
7 members on
I
there.
mean, that makes
EDAs are
sense.
made up the same way of 5 and 7.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. We're a small community. It's kind of funny that we thought, you know, we'd be able to wrangle 7 people for each committee.
Well, sometimes it did work, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you, I am really, really happy with the planning and zoning commission right now, because I think everyone on there is really committed. And not just passively committed, but really,
Well, the last 2 people,
Energized.
the newest, 2 new additions are so experienced. I'm like, this
Yeah.
is amazing.
yeah. And you wonder, you know, I don't know how Paul reached out to them, but, you know, we need to, as city hall and maybe council as well, but I'll take it on myself and pull Renee in, is that we need to do a better opportunity of reaching out to people and letting them know of opportunities that become available and touting the benefits of participation.
Right, and
Uh,
successes.
Yeah, yeah. Cause we're turning a point.
Mhm.
I
To be part
really
of something
feel like-
really exciting.
Yeah,
The only thing that there is too with going down on numbers, and I understand the 5 and 7, but make sure we have a quorum so the people that are gonna do it are actually gonna do it.
committed.
Yeah, because otherwise we're gonna be sitting where we won't have a quorum and we'll be in.
Gonna miss deadline.
Yeah, and so those are the things to keep things going. That was just
Yeah.
a side note to think about too.
And I think we're in a good spot right now.
Yeah.
In terms of those numbers.
Yeah.
With the additional.
But I'm just saying it's something to keep in mind, because a lot of people volunteer and not show up.
So Carl, would you consider being an alternative for the fire department? Fire relief?
I'd rather be on the fire department. Me and Jim talked.
So I'm still on E and Z.
So we don't need alternative here, do we, P and Z?
No, we need
So
to.
Carl will be, instead of the alternative, he'll take Jim's spot for,
On
Oh,
fire.
I'm
Fire.
sorry, I
Yeah.
misunderstood.
If you need an alternative on that one, you can put me down for that. I'll do that.
I don't think it's necessary
Yeah.
to have an alternative. I think in the past, what I've done, if I need to miss a meeting, I just let them know and ask if there's anything they have concerns about or questions about, and then they say no.
I can
and then-
continue as Parks alternative.
One that we're missing on there is streets, but I don't think we're gonna have a whole lot of streets, are we?
But we
What
could
Goes at the
now
bottom.
with closing up of,
do you say?
As needed.
you know, with
That's
the
right.
water and sewer stuff. I'd do streets.
And then if we do EDA, then
Oh,
we'd
we'll
have to
take that one.
shuffle that around a little bit.
Oh, yeah, we got that.
What's that?
and speaking of
Or
the EDA.
EDA or C? EDA.
is
helping us.
Yeah, CETA is the,
See that?
CETA and CETA contract, EDA. yeah.
for EDA. Yeah, yeah, you'd rather do that than P, if, once we change P and Z, then you'd do C, EDA. EDA.
It's kind of going hand in hand right now for what we have, I think, but we'll see.
Yeah,
I'll think with it.
future,
It's really
future food for
two
thought.
different functions.
Right,
Right, but they kind of go, they kind of work, you know, it's
Yeah.
similar,
Very
similar
similar.
work. So it's something you're interested in, yeah. All right, I like it.
So
Okay, so Chris was not able to because he has a prior equipment
Thank you.
Brains are shutting down.
appointment, for, yeah, December 8th. We were gonna do that just an hour before the planning and zoning.
Mhm.
I pressed him for some alternate dates. So he has December 5th, 6th, 12th, or 20th.
Which one is
Oh.
gonna be out because we've got our,
20th, that's ours.
city council,
Yeah, but
Council.
why wouldn't that work?
Right.
city council.
Why couldn't he come before?
Because we were gonna tie him into planning and zoning so that they could get an intro to what's
March the
going
12th is
on
Gold
with the
Rush.
EDA, because we've had the first one, we know what EDA is.
The 5th is Parks at 7,
Yeah, but why couldn't?
12.
I mean, that was obvious why we said that last time, when we said do it with planning and zoning.
Is
Yeah,
30.
That was the only reason why.
but they
so.
could, they could attend this.
That's fine too, I'm just saying that was the only reason why we did that.
So the 20th, could we have him come on the 20th ahead of, like, early?
We want less meeting.
Hmm?
We want less meeting.
Yeah,
Let's make it an 8 hour.
Well, it's because it's public hearing. What do we have going on that night?
Well, we'll have the public hearing from P and Z, we'll have public hearing for the water thing, you'll have to set the budget, like.
Ugh.
a bunch
No,
of that
It's gonna be
stuff.
too much, yeah.
Wait. Why are you having a public hearing from PNC?
PNZ has a public hearing in December, you'll have to finalize your vote on that council meeting.
Yeah, but that's just a vote, it's not,
Well, I
the only
know.
public.
You're just
hearing
No, I'm
is
just
that-
anticipating
saying the public
discussion will
hearing
be
from
on-
there has to be on
You'll
the
sing.
agenda. And then we also have the public hearing for the delinquent water.
That'll last 2 minutes.
Yeah, some of those are quick and the budget will be quick. It'll be quick since we've had that discussion.
Just a resolution,
Right.
just a resolution.
I don't know.
Can you make 5:30?
How long does he need?
On what day?
I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm
Oh,
guessing that what he's really looking for is how serious is Orinoco about revving this engine,
about what, revenue?
revving this engine
Oh.
back up, cause you were
Mhm.
all gung ho and then all of a sudden it was.
We ran into
You
some
know,
potholes,
Conversation
roadblocks.
that I had with him, that why we stopped was because of staff and the
Right.
election coming up, so we were looking at a January, February timeframe of continuing on our meeting 2 of 4, so, or starting over again.
And I'm trying to rope him in because he has volunteered. If we kickstarted it yet this year, he'll honor the pricing in our current contract.
That's
No, we
right.
wouldn't
That
do it.
was the reason for the meeting before January.
You know me, I'm cheap.
Well,
I'm
no, I
telling you, I
remember
know
there
how
was
to
a- I'm
manage
like-
a budget,
I
right?
feel like there was a reason we were trying to get this, in.
Yeah,
Well, what about if we do,
20th.
Well, Parks meeting starts on the 5th at 7. So, and I'm saying at least an hour probably is what he's looking for, but I don't know what his agenda is, if he's gonna have an introduction meeting, or if he's kind of veering off the course to kind of respond back to what you think he's looking for. That may be a different discussion too than
yeah.
what his plan, meeting number 2 is about.
Well, and what I'd like to do is have it be a joint planning and zoning council, open to the public kind of thing.
Mhm.
If we had to do, cookies and refreshments,
It's cookies.
yeah, there.
So what,
Kind of
what
give
about
him an
6th,
opportunity
which would be
to
on a
really-
Tuesday?
I'm sorry,
What about the 6th on a Tuesday? That way we could have more people try to attend.
I'm unavailable that day. I'm in the cities for election.
But I
Yes,
just think,
definitely.
If anybody, if we can make it work, then it's regular city council, and I just am not a fan of having an extra night for everybody. So if we can tie it into that regular city council meeting, but the hour before,
Yeah.
is that even possible? For
Jim said he
everybody?
can make it at 5:30, so.
Have it at 5:30?
Yeah, how much, does he need a whole hour?
I would think so, if he's gonna kind of introduce this to everybody.
Well, and we can
I mean,
take
it's when we
break in
first did the
between.
first one, it takes a little bit of time, and some people are gonna have some questions out of it too, so. I think it's gonna at least take an hour off of that, and if we start a little bit later for the council, if we know we're just doing resolutions off of this stuff. We can move pretty quick out of council if it takes a little bit extra time, is what I'm thinking that way.
I'd
I
really
would
rather
talk to Chris
tie
and
it.
See what his agenda is and use that as a judgment on how much
Not an extra.
we need an
Not
hour.
in
and 30
December,
minutes.
it's too busy of a month
Well, no,
anyway.
it's just like, it is just the 20th if we do it that way, so.
Yeah, I would really prefer it that night. The 20th early,
Yeah, 20th at 5:30 to work for him.
and then we would invite P and Z.
And
Mhm.
start with that and we can.
They're
carry
gonna
over to the
remember
next
it's
year.
here, so, I mean,
Yeah, we can try keep that council meeting agenda slim.
That's what I'm saying, all we're doing is resolutions off
Yeah,
of it, so we'll be a
Yeah.
little bit
I
late.
don't know if Sonny heard you.
We can try meetings.
You know what she told me this meeting, is be short, cause she didn't feel good.
Feel like you perked up halfway through, Sonny,
I exited and went down and got a little.
like, Big Dayquil or?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Do you?
Yeah, it's
I'll
okay.
second.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Ah.
We have a public hearing that at 6:32, but I don't anticipate many people being there, just the 3 people, if anybody, so.
Anybody.
Oh, there, the ghost